What's going on, everybody? Good morning, and welcome back to another morning monologue thinking out loud. So, here's what's on my mind this morning. I don't care what people think of me. This is a common goal for people because we do care. We all kind of innately worry about other people's perception of us. And that becomes problematic for the majority of folks. And so, there's a big movement around self acceptance and self love and all that stuff, which is very important, but a component of that tends to be learning how to not care what other people think of you. And this is kind of double edged because it is important that we don't tie our internal feelings of self worth to our perception of how other people see us. But at the same time, it does matter what people think of us for different reasons than we usually care about. But if you think about it, self-awareness in a social sense is like an evolutionary trait. Humans are social creatures. We evolved because we were able to communicate on such a deep level with each other to the point where we can actually convey abstract thoughts and feelings to each other verbally, right? And we have written language. We can record history, and the discoveries that people make in each generation can be passed down. That's what made humans rise to the top. And so we need to function as a society, right? We need to be able to relate with each other and communicate with each other and mesh together so that we can collaborate and work together. You can't really work with people if you don't like each other. The majority of people have a sense for how other people are perceiving them. We see how people react to us. We read their body language, their facial expressions, their tone of voice when they talk to us. We're constantly receiving this feedback and processing it in a way where we are trying to figure out, how does this person see me? And we want it to be positive at the base level, because if people react to us well, if people like us, they are going to be able to collaborate with us better. They're going to be willing to collaborate with us, be willing to work with us, willing to help us out when we need it. There's a reason that we kind of naturally have this part of our thoughts that are taken up by this. Now, where this starts to hurt us, obviously, is we start to look at how other people perceive us, and that becomes our metric for our worth in the world, which is not good. Our value, like as human beings, isn't necessarily tied to how other people see us. Now, you could argue that what gives our life meaning is in part the impact that we leave on the world around us. And so that does have something to do with how other people perceive us, but it's not actually their opinions of us. It's how do we benefit the world around us, right? How do we contribute to life? But, it's easy to mix that up, I guess. So, God, where am I going with this? Yeah, these are just my thoughts on it. Like, it's really easy, especially when we're young. I don't know what it was like for you guys, but for me, I think it was around like fifth grade when I started to actually realize, like, hey, other people see me a certain way. It never really occurred to me when I was younger. And I don't know if that's normal or if it's abnormal, but for me, it wasn't until I was around 10 or 11 that I started to realize, like, I want people to see me a certain way. I want people to like me. I want to be accepted by my peers. I want to be cool. It never bothered me before that, but for some reason, something switched in me, and that all of a sudden became really, really important. That's, I think, part of this adolescence, right? And it explains, I've read some things on this, how the desire to be accepted by your peer group is like one of the highest priority items on the mind of adolescents. And that is a big part of why adolescents tend to engage in riskier behaviors, because if those risky behaviors carry some weight as far as improving their social standing or improving how their peers perceive them, it is worth the risk to them. And I read that, a couple months ago, and it made a lot of sense to me, because looking back, once I was, well into high school, that was the most important thing to me, was how am I perceived by my peer group? Because in my small world at that time, which was basically just my family friends, and my peers at school, my social standing was directly related to my quality of life and the opportunities that were available to me. Because at that time, opportunity to me was my day to day. How are people going to treat me? What kinds of things are people going to be willing to do with me? What kinds of fun things am I going to be able to do in my free time? What level of respect am I going to receive from my peer group, or level of disrespect? Those were the things that mattered more so than the things that were far off in the distance, like getting into college and setting myself up for a career. And those things were so far off compared to the immediate, what felt like need to be accepted, that anything that would improve my social standing or improve how I thought people saw me was of the highest priority. And so that was what I put all my time and energy into. And that's unhealthy to, to that degree. I think there's something psychologists would probably agree that's natural about that at that age specifically, but that tends to, I think, carry on into life, and that becomes very unhealthy because ultimately, when we think about other people, if all that we're thinking about is how they're perceiving us, ultimately we're just being selfish and we're just thinking about ourselves, and that's where I think a lot of issues are rooted. If we're thinking about ourselves, if we're thinking about other people in the context of us, we're not thinking about them. We're not thinking about how they actually feel. We're not putting ourselves in their shoes. We lack empathy. So we're not able to actually relate with people at the deepest, most productive level. So that was a big thing that I found I had to work on as I got a little bit older, going through recovery and getting clean, finding that a lot of my external problems, the issue with substances and with lack of self-control and all these things, were more rooted in these personal issues of being totally self-centered all the time. And all of my relationships with people were totally centered around what could they do for me? What did I have to do to keep my standing with them high so that I could continue to get what I wanted from them? And there's some logic to some of that. We do need to be able to collaborate with people if we want to be able to build more than we could build on our own. But there's a limit to that. And I was completely devoid of thinking about them in the context of what do they need? What is going to make this person's life better? What are they feeling? What are they thinking? How is this thing that's happening externally affecting them? How is my behavior affecting them? Basically, the purpose of this is I understand that it's important to learn how to derive your validation, your feeling of purpose, your feeling of mattering from within, not from the people around you. I have to fundamentally understand that I am enough and that I matter and that I am supposed to be here simply because I am here already. And my worth and my value does not have anything to do with other people's opinion of me. That's important. And so in that context, I don't care what other people think of me. In a more nuanced way, I do. I have to care to some degree what people think of me because, well, for one thing, my income is based on, other people. I don't want to be disliked universally because then I'm not going to be able to do business. Nobody's going to want to work with me. And that's the case for any industry. If nobody wants to work with you, you're not going to find work or you're going to be really limited in the work you can do. And so you're going to be limited in, the kind of lifestyle you can live. Beyond that, just it's really important for a good quality of life for most people to have other people in their life that are close with them, that you can develop deep relationships with, that you can share with, people who will listen to you when you need to offload the things that are on your mind, the things you're feeling, and people that you can do that for, because that's equally, if not more fulfilling to help people in that way. And you can't do that if nobody likes you, you know? So it does matter what people think of me, and I do care. But the asterisk there is that I care because being likable, being just a pleasant person opens the door for me to build relationships with people, which help both me live a better life and help hopefully them. If people like me, I'm able to add to their quality of life. And in turn, by having people around me who I can see that I'm being helpful to and liked by, that improves my quality of life. Not because it gives my life meaning because they like me, but because it can give my life more meaning by contributing to life more. So if I continue to live my life totally trapped in this cycle of seeking approval from other people, I'm going to be miserable forever. Because even if I'm doing things that make people appear to like me, even if I'm doing things that get me that feedback that I want, where people congratulate me or compliment me or do whatever shit gives me a quick hit of dopamine, it's never going to last. And there's going to come a time where it runs dry and I'm not going to know what to do. But if I can get that feeling from myself and can look inward and remind myself that I like myself, I like the person I am. Um, I'm okay with where I am in life. I'm proud of myself for the things I've done. I'm optimistic, for the future, and I'm confident in my abilities to continue to carry me through the future. When I can bring all that stuff up internally, then Even if the external validation runs dry, I have something to carry me through. So, yeah, it matters what people think of me, but not necessarily for the reasons that most of us tend to think, I guess. I don't need people to like me because if they don't, I'm a failure. I want people to like me because that allows me to grow my life. Yeah, those are the thoughts for the day.